Hey everybody, I'm Ethan.
And I'm Jesse.
And today we're taking a look at the Kalk OR and electric dirt bikes.
Next on Now Let's Review.
Why do they have to name them these things? We were able to get our hands on the Kalk OR and the Kalk for an afternoon, and I want to give a big thanks to my neighbors for letting us use their land to film. Kalk is a Swedish company that makes a variety of electric two-wheeled vehicles. We have reviewed their OSA mopeds before, but coming from a dirt bike background, the Kalk is the bike I've been most excited about since I first learned of them a few years ago. And let me say right away that they did not disappoint. The Kalk OR is the off-road only version, and the is the street-legal variant. The build quality of these bikes is excellent, and high-quality parts and components are used all over. The looks, on the other hand, are divisive. I was not a fan of the looks of the OSA mopeds we reviewed last year, but I have to say I'm a big fan of the way the Kalk looks. So overall, the build quality is really impressive with these bikes. Everything feels really high-end, with the exception of a couple parts that I noticed, one of which is the knobs on the Kalk OR are a little bit flimsy. They're fine, but they just feel like they should be nicer, more of like a German engineered, nice solid click. And another thing is part of the rear brake lever broke off on the Kalk while we were riding. I think one of us just hit a rock at some point, but I mean, still, these are dirt bikes. They're meant to be ridden off-road, and they should be able to take a beating without, part of your brakes breaking off. Whether or not you like the way these bikes look, the power and torque should be universally impressive. The Kalk OR is chain-driven by an 11 kilowatt, 15 horsepower motor. It has a 12-tooth front sprocket and an 80-tooth rear sprocket, which contributes a great deal to the OR's massive 206.5 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheel. That torque figure makes itself known very quickly, as the front tire will easily go in the air if you crack the throttle. The is belt-driven by a 10 kilowatt, 13.5 horsepower motor. While less powerful and torquey than the OR, it still manages to put down 186 foot-pounds of torque to the rear wheel. With the smoother dual sport tires on the it was more difficult to experience the torque off-road purely because it was struggling for traction, but it was still a very quick bike in the trails. So one of the craziest things about these bikes is the amount of torque. So the Kalk OR, which is the off-road one, puts down 206.5 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheel. That's not even at the crank, that's at the rear wheel. So for context, if anyone knows motorcycles, that is more torque than a KTM Super Duke puts down, and the Super Duke is infamous for being a crazy torquey, super powerful, scary bike to ride. So these things, being these small little dirt bikes, are putting down more torque than one of the torqueyest motorcycles you can buy. Both bikes have Öhlins premium air forks with 204 millimeters of travel and linkage-mounted rear shocks with 205 millimeters of travel. The suspension is incredible on these bikes. Aggressive riding on technical trails with lots of roots and rocks was nothing these bikes couldn't handle. The only thing that would improve the off-road performance of these bikes are the tires. The 24-inch front and rear Trail Saver tires on the OR were knobby enough to get traction in most places, but in some of the really technical spots, they slipped a lot more than full knobby tires would. The 24-inch front and rear dual sport tires on the were significantly worse off-road. The is street legal, and therefore it makes sense for it to have more road-oriented tires compared to the OR, but if you are doing any off-road riding at all, the Trail Savers might be a better choice for the Instead of getting the Kalk OR, I would opt for the extra $500 and get the Kalk OR Race. This comes with a full fender kit, 19-inch front wheel and 18-inch rear wheel, and full knobby MX tires, because the tires on the OR are narrow and they don't have full knobby tread on them, so it was kind of struggling for traction a lot in the woods. So if I were going to get one, I would spend just the extra $500 and I would just get the full OR Race version. One of the biggest areas where these bikes shine is the off-road maneuverability. At 152 pounds, including the 37-pound battery, the OR offers a massive advantage over traditional dirt bikes in terms of how easy it is to throw around in the woods. The is heavier at 174 pounds, including the 37-pound battery, but even so, both bikes are very easy to move around and extremely nimble. So these bikes are smaller than your typical 250cc, 450cc dirt bike. They are much narrower and they're much shorter, but also they're not like tiny. They're a good balance between, I would say, probably a 125 and a 250cc dirt bike. They're big enough that you can ride them like a real motorcycle, you can beat on them, you can throw them around, but they're also small enough and light enough that you can maneuver them even more easily than a typical dirt bike. At one point while I was riding, I got kind of stuck and I could actually get off the bike and lift it up and turn it and put it down facing the direction that I need to go. And you can do that with a typical gas bike if you're exceptionally strong, but it makes it a lot easier to, kind of move them around. Like the fact that I could get off, pick it up and just point it where I need to be going is pretty cool, and it's not really something I could do with a gas bike. The seats are relatively comfortable for dirt bikes, but if you are doing off-road riding, you'll be spending most of your time standing up on the pegs. Each of the bikes has 3 ride modes. Mode 1 is a top speed of 28 miles per hour with limited acceleration. Mode 2 has a top speed of 43 miles per hour with more acceleration. And Mode 3 is the full top speed of 56 miles an hour with all the power available. Having multiple speed modes is nice, but I was in Mode 3 the whole time since the power delivery is so smooth. The bikes also have 3 levels of regenerative braking. Mode 1 is little to no regen braking, so the bike will essentially coast. Mode 2 is supposed to mimic 2-stroke engine braking, so the bike will slow down some, but not significantly. Mode 3 is supposed to mimic 4-stroke engine braking, so the bike will slow down quite a bit once you let off the throttle. I grew up riding 4-stroke dirt bikes, so I preferred Mode 3, but having these brake options allows you to really tailor the bike's behavior to your preferred riding style. For more aggressive stopping, the bikes have front and rear hydraulic disc brakes with 220mm stainless steel rotors and plenty of stopping power. So I grew up riding dirt bikes, I'm used to it, it's what I used to do all the time, and getting back on dirt bikes with the Kalk bikes and going through the same trails I grew up riding, I was having a fantastic time. They are super fun, crazy powerful, crazy torque. They are a blast. So the cool thing about the Kalk bikes is because they're electric, they don't really make much noise. They do make a kind of a whirring, buzzing sound that's just from the drivetrain and stuff. But it is significantly quieter than your typical gas dirt bikes. Which is a great thing when we're talking about trying to reopen trail networks because they get closed mostly due to noise complaints. So if you replace a lot of the gas dirt bikes with electric dirt bikes that make a lot less noise, you're probably going to be able to open up a lot more trail systems. The And features the same display found on the OSA mopeds we reviewed last year and shows the speed, brake mode, ride mode, battery level, odometer, and trip distance. The OR has no display, but has an analog unit with battery level lights and a knob to control the brake mode as well as a knob to control the ride mode. Powering both bikes is a 51.8 volt, 50 amp hour lithium-ion battery pack that charges in 3 hours and gives the bikes a claimed range of 56.5 miles of mixed city riding. That range is listed for the And, whereas the OR simply says up to 3 hours of ride time. For off-road riding, 56 miles or 3 hours of ride time is pretty good. In my experience, I wouldn't have the energy to do much more than 3 hours of technical trail riding before I need a break, but 56 miles of street riding with the And does seem a bit low, especially considering how lightweight the bike is. That being said, I do understand that the And is more geared towards being an urban or suburban commuter, and for that it would be exceptional. But 56 miles of range for a dual sport bike is too short to go for any adventures if you have to travel on the road to get to where the trails are. You can buy an extra battery pack for these bikes for $3,500 US, which is approaching the price of a brand new gas dirt bike just for an extra battery. The price of the bikes themselves is likely going to be a huge punch in the gut for anyone interested. The Kalk OR cost $13,500 US and the Kalk And cost $14,500. These bikes are well made and have incredible performance, but that price point is just too high for most people. I wouldn't consider these affordable by any means. Your typical 250cc dirt bike is probably going to go brand new $5,000. So it obviously depends on who you are, how much money you have, and what you really want to accomplish by buying a dirt bike. If you just want to have a dirt bike, buy a gas bike for that price. Buy 3 of them and have all your friends ride with you. Like the Kalk bikes are great. I love them, they were amazing to ride. I would love to own one. However, I would never pay $13,000 for a dirt bike. It's just way too much for most people.
But if you wanted to buy an electric dirt bike, how many other options are there?
That's the thing, is there really aren't, because Alta, who we tested out a couple years ago, have gone out of business. Rest in peace. They were fantastic as well. You really are limited.
Talk to me about gas dirt bike maintenance and fuel costs.
I think it would take a very long time of owning one of these Kalk bikes to pay for the difference in cost from like a normal dirt bike. I can't imagine you'd be spending, I don't know, close to $10,000 over the lifetime of owning the vehicle on maintenance and fuel. Also, because Kalk is its own very unique company, all the parts are going to be really expensive to replace. Replacement parts for any Japanese-made dirt bike are dirt cheap, really easy to get, and it's just very hard, in my opinion, to justify the purchase of one of these bikes when you have so many other options that are cheaper and in the long run will cost you less money and less time probably. Having these bikes where I had them with all my neighbors who I grew up around and everything, these are lifelong dirt bike riders who have never ridden electric bikes before, and every single one of them who was looking at it and took it for a spin was just like, wow, these are crazy. They're super fast, super cool. So the adoption would be there if they were affordable, I think.
And more people would actually be able to do it.
For the OR, there are certain instances where I think it would be better than owning a gas bike, but I mean, again, it just boils down to the price. For the which is the street legal version, that would be a fantastic suburban or urban commuting vehicle. That thing is a lot of fun. I can imagine ripping around on your commute would be super fun with that bike. And the fact that it is basically just a dual sport dirt bike means that if you do find some trails, you can hop on them, you can ride off-road, you have the ability to do both. However, again, it comes down to the fact that there is some fierce competition from a little company called Zero that offers very similar, if not more capable bikes for a significantly lower price tag. So as we talked about in the OSA review we did last year, Kalk, you gotta bring the prices down a little bit because you're really shooting yourself in the foot.
All right, well, that wraps it up here on Now Let's Review today. Let us know what you think about the Kalk OR and the and put those in the comments down below. Would you spend $14,000 to buy a dirt bike? I want to know your thoughts, because honestly, this is going to help us pick which stuff to review. Let us know what you think down below, and also don't forget to leave us a like. It helps us out a whole lot, and we would really appreciate it.
Make sure you subscribe if you're interested in this kind of content. This is going to be the first of hopefully many electric dirt bikes and motorcycles that we review on the channel. So trying to broaden our reach a little bit from just bikes and scooters. We want to get to more cool stuff like motorcycles and cars and everything. So make sure you subscribe if you're interested, and we will see you next time.
Now let's review.